When it comes to the Creek Fire, the North Complex, the August Complex, the Bobcat Fire, and numerous other California wildfires, there are some big updates that we're going to be talking about in this video, and also some concerning things in the forecast for the next few days. So we've got a lot to talk about. Before we get into that, I will say I've got a bit of a surprise for you guys at the end of this video, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Alright, the first thing we're going to look at is the satellite imagery as of this morning and right now. So you see the smoke coming off the August complex up here, now officially the largest wildfire in the history of California. It's actually on its way to becoming twice the size of the second largest California wildfire in history. See some smoke coming off the North complex up here, some smoke coming off the Creek Fire, and then you'll notice this huge plume right in really central California. And if we zoom in on that, you can see this plume is just blowing up. The smoke and the air quality was actually supposed to be getting better today, but this is leading to some new smoke that we didn't expect. Now, I couldn't find too much information on this fire, but I believe it is the Sequoia Complex. And this started because of that moisture from all those thunderstorms we had a couple weeks ago that caused all the lightning fires and the hundreds of fires across the state. And it seemed like this one wasn't really an issue, and then as of this morning, it just started blowing up. Right now, the acreage is at 74,000 acres, 12% containment, and there are 700 personnel on this fire. I imagine that number is going to go way up throughout the day today as CAL FIRE makes this a priority, as that's showing some really extreme fire behavior. So, like I said, this is creating a lot of smoke that's going all over California, and that is impacting air quality. First thing I will point out in this map is Washington and Oregon actually have worse air quality right now than California. You can see majority of Oregon, majority of eastern Washington are into that very unhealthy, hazardous range. But being a Californian, I will be focusing on the California wildfires throughout this video. So our air quality today, it was supposed to be getting better, but you can see it's actually still in that unhealthy to very unhealthy and even hazardous range, especially around the North complex here. Now, part of the reason for this, you might be saying, well, based on this satellite imagery, it looks like there's way less smoke than we have been seeing in the past. But part of the problem is the last 4 days, our winds have actually been pretty light, and that's allowed a lot of the smoke that was in the higher altitude to drop down to the surface. So while it was creating those crazy orange skies we saw last Wednesday, it wasn't all that unhealthy. Well, it was unhealthy, but not terrible. But right now, that smoke has settled down to the surface, and what that's doing is basically just creating unhealthy air for pretty much all of California. And in the forecast, it's not going to be getting much better. I believe part of this reason is because of all that new smoke that is being created by the Sequoia Complex that we didn't see happening in previous forecasts. And you can see majority of Northern California will still be in that unhealthy range tomorrow. And then around the August Complex and North Complex, we're still going to be in that very unhealthy to hazardous range. Now, the big weather system that's really going to be driving these fires over the next couple of days and really changing the behavior that we have been seeing are these extreme winds that we're going to see pushing into the region throughout the day today. Now, this is going to do a couple things, both good and bad for these fires. You can see this blue coloring. I know there's a lot going on in this map, but all you really need to worry about is this orange color is weaker winds, this blue color is stronger winds. And throughout the day today, you can see those stronger winds moving into California. Now, the good news is these stronger winds are going to push some of that smoke out of California. Bad news for Nevada, good news for the Bay Area and Valley. What that's also going to do, you can see these winds are coming from the ocean. So what that's going to do is bring in some moist ocean air, which will rise up our humidity levels and help with these fires. Now, the bad news is the last few days we've had relatively weak winds. That's been leading to bad air quality but that's also been leading to just a thick smoke layer. So the thick smoke layer creates bad air quality, but that thick smoke has actually been so thick that temperatures have been cooler and winds have been weaker. So the smoke has actually been helping the fires and firefighters for the last couple of days, and we haven't seen that much growth with these fires over the last couple of days. With these strong winds coming in, that's going to clear out the smoke and allow warmer temperatures to happen and stronger winds to occur. So that's going to be a pretty big factor we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days. All right, so getting into this, the first fire I want to talk about is the North Complex. And this is the first fire I want to talk about because there has been some pretty unfortunate news as CAL FIRE has been able to get a better idea and picture of some of the destruction that has happened with this fire. Now, some of the good news is you can see that with that thick smoke that caused reduced fire behavior, a lot of the hot spots that we were seeing earlier have actually calmed down on this fire. You can still see there's some on the northern and eastern edge, a couple into Lake Orville, but for the most part, so this map shows fire perimeter, and then these red dots show where there are active hotspots. And overall, this is looking a lot better than it was in previous forecasts. So the main priority with this fire is on the southern edge, really getting in some lines to protect Orville and these populated areas down here. Now, where the bad news comes in is we are now up to almost 260,000 acres. There is 26% containment, but as always when it comes to the evacuations, I can't possibly go over all these, so be sure to check the link in the description to see which areas are actively still evacuating. Now, getting back to the numbers here, as CAL FIRE was able to get a better picture of some of the damages that have happened with this fire, you can see we're now up to 325 structures destroyed, and unfortunately 12 fatalities associated with this fire. So, as always, if you or any of your loved ones or friends and family have been affected by this fire, my thoughts and prayers go out to you. This is not what we want to see. Now, moving on, you can see this is what we want to see. We're now up to over 3,000 personnel, 76 crews. I know there's even a few crews that have come down from Canada to help with this fire. So again, this has just been a devastating fire. So CAL FIRE is really making this a priority to just control this blaze. We now have 43 helicopters, quite possibly the largest number I've ever seen, 235 engines, 82 dozers, and 103 water tenders. Now, when it comes to the forecast for this area, it says the temperatures are going to be going down, which you'd say, that's great news. With lower temperatures, you have reduced fire behavior. But with these extreme winds and these stronger winds pushing in, the smoke is going to be moving out of the area. So some of that protection we had isn't going to be there, and I think we're actually going to see higher temperatures because we no longer have that smoke blocking the sunlight from coming in. So even though at first glance it looks like that's going to be getting better, I wouldn't count on it. What we can count on, though, is this humidity starting to rise a bit. Again, that's still extremely low, 23%. The reason humidity matters, as always, it's because if you have dry air, the vegetation gets dry, and if you've ever tried to start a campfire with a wet log or a dry log, you know which one is a lot easier to start and which one will burn hotter and easier. So with dry air, we have extreme fire behavior. Now the good news here, you see that humidity is rising a little bit. 27% is still extremely low, but that's higher than 23, and that's again due to that moist ocean air starting to move in with those stronger winds. Now with the winds, you see, it doesn't show that it's really going up that much, but I did hear a report that we could have 35 mile per hour wind gusts associated with these stronger winds coming in. So the next fire I want to talk about is the Creek Fire. And again, that thick smoke layer has actually been helping firefighters a lot, and especially with the Creek Fire, where the smoke has been extremely thick. That's been keeping temperatures down, keeping winds down, And while we still have seen some fire advancement on the southern and northern edge, for the most part, it's been pretty calm for the last couple days. Again, that's going to change as that strong wind pushes the smoke out. We're going to see warmer temperatures and really an increase in winds as well. So the two areas to look at here are this north side of the fire, where you can see there are a lot of hot spots up here. There's a lot of dead fuels. We've been talking about this in past videos. About 80 to 90% of the trees in this area have been killed by bark beetles. So that's really what's been fueling this fire. The main priority is this southern edge. As you can see, there are still some areas of active burning. And I heard some of these hotspots have actually moved past previous containment lines. So this is the main priority right now. Get some new lines in there with dozers and hand crews to protect some of these communities like Auberry. Now, one good news is right here, this is all the dead timber, all the dead trees. As this fire moves into more of the brush and grasslands, it's going to be easier for CAL FIRE to control. Now, one thing I will show you, this is the WRF S-Fire model developed by Adam Kochanski, who is faculty at San Jose State. I'm lucky enough to say I'm actively learning from him, and he developed this model, which is the top wildfire computer model in the world. It's one of the only few models that actually combines the fire with the atmosphere above it. So if we click in here, you can see this is showing what the fire did yesterday. You can see that there isn't much advancement with this because the winds have been weaker due to that really strong smoke that we've been seeing. I believe we can zoom in here, and you can see there hasn't been that much advancement of this fire. But that's likely to change once I show you the forecast for this region. Before we get to that, I'll show you the numbers. This is now up over 200,000 acres. I also know because of that thick smoke, CAL FIRE has been having a tricky time really getting a defined perimeter of this fire. So as they get better infrared data, we are likely to see a big jump in that number as the new perimeter is identified. One other thing I will say with this fire, they have been having trouble with drones in the region. They've actually had to cancel some air operations because there have been drones in the region. So if you're trying to get video of this fire, please don't do it. Let CAL FIRE do their job so that they can put this fire out and protect our communities. So getting back into it, over 200,000 acres, we're up to 8% containment. Again, that's still not very high, and the forecast over the next days is looking tricky. We are up to 369 structures destroyed, 2,300 personnel and 28 crews, and then we got 23 helicopters, 230 engines, 69 dozers, and 63 water tenders. Now, the one other thing I will say about this fire is, if you remember at the start of this had the amazing story of the National Guard rescue mission that actually came into a campground here and rescued hundreds of people from a campground as the fire was burning all around them. And there was even one air operation where a Chinook helicopter took out 101 people at the same time. So that was a pretty amazing story. I believe this is going to be a historic fire, and we're likely to see a movie made about that rescue mission someday. So getting into the forecast for this region, you can see they have the temperatures really rising, and rising significantly, and it's likely going to be even more than a 9-degree rise because that smoke is moving out of the area, and we no longer have that smoke protection from those light rays coming in. So looking in, you see the temperature is going to go way up. That's not what we want to see. And you can see humidity, while it will be increasing with that ocean air, the big thing I notice here is that the nighttime hours, it doesn't really rise all that much. Now, typically, nighttime humidities look something like this, where humidity goes way up at nighttime, and that helps firefighters a lot because the fire behavior gets a lot weaker, and then firefighters can really get a control on the blaze. But with the creek fire, humidities have been staying extremely low all night long, and that's been really leading to some tricky firefighting conditions because they don't get that break during the nighttime hours. So we're going to definitely be keeping our eye on the creek fire for the next couple days as the temperatures rise, winds increase, and relative humidity stays pretty low. So the next fire I want to talk about is actually a new fire that I haven't talked about previously, but it is starting to threaten some communities around Los Angeles. So I figured I should bring it up in this forecast. So it is the Bobcat Fire that you see here in the San Gabriel Mountains. Now this has likely been fueled by the low relative humidity and a lot of the dry fuels in this area. I heard one CAL FIRE representative say that some of the fuels in this area have not burned in 60 years. So that's why we have all these hot spots right here. It's because there's a ton of fuel for this fire to burn. And you can see that, unfortunately, a lot of these hot spots are outside of the previous fire perimeter and moving into these populated areas. So I know CAL FIRE is making the southern edge of the Bobcat Fire their main concern. They're trying to get some lines in around here to protect these communities. This is going to be a big one to watch, especially as some of those stronger winds and higher temperatures move in. So the forecast for this region, you can see Tuesday, that's going to be a day to watch. That says it's going to be getting up to 96 degrees. And typically I don't worry too much about the forecast this far out because forecast models aren't that confident past 2 or 3 days, but that's definitely something we're going to keep our eye on. Now when it comes to winds, the winds haven't been too extreme in this area, but you can see this afternoon and tomorrow there's going to be some tricky firefighting conditions, especially tomorrow afternoon where you see it getting up to 94 degrees, that wind tick in the afternoon, and then humidity is dropping to 23%. The good news is you can see in this area, those humidities actually rise during the nighttime hours. With that being said, I know because of those dry fuels, the fire behavior has still been intense during the nighttime hours. All right, the last fire I want to talk about is the August Complex. And I saved this one for last because I'm not going to lie to you, this fire is ridiculous right now. Like I said, it is the #1 largest wildfire in the history of California, and it has achieved that rank almost by 2 times. It is about to surpass the second largest wildfire by 2 times that number. And you can see a lot of the areas of active fire behavior are on this western and northern edge. I know this is a joint operation, and I believe CAL FIRE has control over this western edge where they're trying to get some lines in here to stop this fire from burning. Now, I will remind you, you might not have heard of the August Complex because it wasn't that much in the news recently. Because one, this is in lower populated areas, and the acreage actually wasn't that high until these 2 fires combined. Now the August Complex started as 37 different fires when we had all those lightning fires popping up a couple weeks ago, and it has now just merged into one gigantic fire. So yeah, that number, it's up to 877,000 acres. It is at 28% containment. And it will be interesting to see what happens with this number as some of those stronger winds do come in. So coming down here, like I said, this is a lower populated area, so we have 26 structures destroyed. Not as bad as some of the other fires, but certainly not what we want to see. 1,300 personnel, 23 crews, 3 helicopters, 90 engines, 34 dozers, 53 water tenders. So to put that acreage number in perspective, let's look at the top 20 largest California wildfires of all time. Like I was saying before, that's almost double the second largest wildfire. And then just looking at some of these other fires on the list, you can see the fires in red are what are still actively burning, while SCU and LNU still are technically actively burning. They haven't really been growing for the last week or two. So we don't have to really worry about that acreage number increasing. But again, out of the top 5 largest California wildfires of all time, 3 are burning right now. We also have the North Complex coming in at number 9, and then the Creek Fire moving up to number 14. And I believe the Creek Fire has even moved up this list in the last couple of hours. So the surprise I've got for you is, like I was talking about with the Creek Fire, this fire we see here, and I was telling you about that amazing rescue mission that happened. Well, because of my family friend, Ben Bowman, he introduced me to the Chinook pilot that actually performed that rescue mission. And a number of days ago, I was fortunate enough to sit down and have an interview with both Ben Bowman and that pilot. So if you want to see that interview and hear that amazing story and hear some of the work these 2 Chinook pilots do on these wildfires, you can either click the link in the description or you can go to my channel to see that video. Now, as always, my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by these California wildfires. We have some challenging conditions coming up in the days ahead. I'm not going to lie, the forecast is looking a little tricky. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on this. I will continue to make these videos every single day, and thanks for watching.